Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey, welcome to California Haunts Radio this evening. Let me push my buttons. There we go. How I'm about my buttons. Gotta push them buttons. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so. We got a great show lined up today. Kind of different from what we usually do, but it's going to be fun. We're gonna have a good time. Anyway, I'm the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. You can find us at californiahaunts.org. We are totally nonprofit. So if you have a paranormal problem and you want us to come out, we will not charge you a dime to come out and help you. Okay? That's not what we do. We are simply here to help and inform people about the paranormal and to teach. So there you have that. That's out of the way. Now on the bright side, California Haunts Radio. That's what we're all here for. You can find California Haunts Radio at californiahauntsradio.com. You can also find us on YouTube under the auspice of California Haunts, which I'm about to change very shortly, like this evening. If you're watching from YouTube, please subscribe. We're looking for subscribers, and the best way to do that is if you look down in the lower right-hand corner of the video, you're going to see a little ghost with a magnifying glass and a Sherlock Holmes cap. Kindly click on that video, or that icon. Video. It's going to be one of those days you can tell. Kindly click on that icon, and that'll make you a subscriber to our YouTube channel. We've got over 100, almost 190 videos on there that you guys can go back over from the last year and a half. And if you explore a little more on that channel, you'll also find some investigation videos from the team. So there's all kinds of stuff on, over there for you to take a look at. If you see that ticker running along the bottom, like I told you, the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team is a nonprofit organization. So everything for this radio show, from the computers to the lights to the mic, to the Focusrite Scarlett to help me help me control the mics and all that, it all comes out of my pocket. So when something breaks, I have to pay for it, just like StreamYard and the internet and everything else. So I need a little help paying the bills here because it's just little old me doing this. And if you could help me out a little bit, I'd appreciate it. If you look at the bottom if you look at that ticker, you can do that at paypal.me/CaliforniaHaunts. Or if you're uncomfortable with PayPal, you can go visit Venmo and then type in California Haunts. That's the easiest way to do it. But like I said, this is my PBS moment. It comes out of my pocket, and so it's kind of tough sometimes, to do this. And I want to keep these great guests like Sally and the others that have been on this week coming in here because I enjoy it. I'm a journalist, photojournalist by trade, and I'm retired. I'm semi-retired from doing that. I do freelance work, but other than that, it's between my freelance and being here at California Haunts Radio and doing this stuff. So this gives me a chance to also do that stuff. Okay, this weekend, February 19th and 20th, is the Mystical Minds Convention in San Jose. Going to have a lot of great speakers, a lot of great paranormal topics, Wiccan topics, you name it. So if you want to have a really good time, go on over there. Speakers: Nazir Muhammad Chohan, Lorian Fenton, Brad Olson, Michael Fury, Blake Fury, Tiffany Turner, Robin Korak, Bess Seeleman, and Shannon Del Florentino. And I may even stop in to speak at least once about paranormal stuff and ghost hunting equipment. That's mysticalmindsconvention.com. Okay, so visit that site, sign up for your tickets. They're going fast. There's not going to be any tickets at the door, so the only way to get in there is to do it online. All right, so that's mysticalmindsconvention.com, February 19th and 20th. Business done. Boom. See? Even I have to have a card here to read off of. It's senility. I just turned 50. I'm not going to say how old I am. About a week ago, and it's senility. Believe me, it starts to set in. You start noticing things. Our guest tonight is Sallyanne Monti. Sallyanne Monti has written a lot of books, and you know how I am about telling people stories. I want to let her tell you her story. And this book that she's written, which we'll talk about, is very unique in that I've read parts of it. I loved it. I usually don't like reading stuff like that, but I just absolutely enjoyed it. In fact, I want to finish it off. But to put it this way, I couldn't put it down once I started getting into it, and then I had to stop because, of course, I had other stuff to do. So we're going to get her up in a minute here. But I want to thank all of you guys for your support. The ones that have been coming, the ones that have been downloading at RSS, the ones that, are Apple Podcasts. Because we're not only broadcast here on YouTube and Facebook, we're broadcasting across Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those formats. We're everywhere. I mean, all you have to do is type us in, and we're going to pop right up, which is kind of fun. So I want to thank everybody for your support. And if you can, if you have family members or friends that might be interested in the paranormal, or even people that just want news items or whatever. I mean, as you know, by listening to us, we do a little bit of everything here. So tell them about us, okay? Tell them about us, because that's what we want. It's word of mouth that's going to make this thing really take off. And it started the last. That's why I want to thank everybody. Since October, it's really started to take off, and I'm really excited about it. And I know I know my producer is as well, and my producer Monica was real excited about it too. But like I said, we always need more and more and more. It's like a greedy thing, once you start getting there, you just want to build it up. I'm going to be starting a TikTok for California Haunts Radio, so you'll be able to find us on TikTok as well. And we're Instagram, so we're going to be expanding out that way too. Anyhow, I just wanted to thank you guys, and please share us with everybody. We do have business cards, and I know my producer and I, every time we go to a restaurant, we're running around handing these things out, trying to get the word out. And here's some incentive for you. Tomorrow I'm going to be wearing the official California Haunts Radio T-shirt. And for people that give us some links and can send us some information about potential guests, that would be great, because if the guest does come on the show, I will send you a T-shirt for free. You will get a California Haunts Radio T-shirt, so that's pretty good incentive for that. We're also putting together where I'm going to be doing some reviews of paranormal equipment, and that'll be found on the YouTube page. And another thing we're doing also is we do have a Patreon, and I'm designing some really cool items like California Haunt sunglasses and things like that. That'll be some incentive for the Patreon. And for a lot of our guests that come on, an hour sometimes isn't enough time to tell the whole story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up special interviews that are going to be over at the Patreon. So that's going to be coming up too, So I want to thank you. Like I said, I want to thank everybody for their support. Now, with that said, I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to bring Sallyanne on and let her tell her story. And here we go. And we're off. Hello. Uh-oh, I can't hear you. Your mic's off.
It wasn't me. It was the fairy on my shoulder.
I believe it. It's the good fairy and the bad fairy.
That's right. I call him Good Spike and Bad Spike.
Remember when your mother used to tell you that stuff, and you were forever glancing up at your shoulders going, uh-oh.
It doesn't end. In fact, in this book that you talked about, one of the chapters is called Good Spike, Bad Spike. I still have that problem. Hey, can I give a shout out? I want to give a shout out to my buddies who are out there watching.
You can give a shout out to anybody you want. We're open and fun here.
I love you. I miss you guys. Thanks for having me.
There we go. I'm really excited to have you on. You've written a lot of books. I wish I could say. I've got 2 books in the works, and it's like every time I sit down to write, there's always some kind of distraction, and then I'm one of these people. I have to have like 5-6 projects going at once. My sister laughs. She comes to my house. And she goes, well, this is cool, but you're not done with this, and this is cool, but you're not done with this, and this is because I'll go from project to project, and I'll get bored, then move on, And that's the problem I have. So I sit down to write my books, and I just get to the point where I'm like, okay, that looks like more fun. I'm going to go over there,
Short stories.
That's it. Is that the answer? Short stories?
That's the answer.
Maybe that's what it was, because when I was working as a journalist at the newspapers, I didn't have a problem with it. You know what I mean? Because I had short stories, 500 to 1,000 words, and away we went, But with this, and then the other problem I have too is as a journalist, they teach you to write short paragraphs in journalism school.
That's true.
So when I have to write books, it's agonizing for me.
Yeah, you have to go in the other direction.
Yeah, I have to rethink how I do it. But anyway, enough about me. Let's hear about you. Tell me about you, and then we'll get into this terrific book you wrote.
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1961, and I grew up in Bensonhurst, and the mafia was all over, and they were killing people in my neighborhood, and a couple of my friends didn't make it out alive. I mean, I'm working on a book called True Tales of True Tales of Something from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, about the mafia, but I don't think I won't ever publish that book. But it's got some fun stories. But that's where I started. And I always believed in the paranormal. And the mafia has something to do with what I'm going to say. I shared a bedroom with my grandmother when I was a little kid, and my bed was against the wall. And that was the only way I could survive my childhood with all this violence around me, is having my back against the wall, and my secret fairy person who was there on the top of my David Cassidy poster, who would watch over me every night. And so, a lot of people think that's BS, and I don't. I watched the Flintstones and they had Shazam, so I have my own little Shazam.
That's awesome, David Cassidy. It was funny because I was watching a Bonanza. My mother used to love to watch Bonanza in her old age. And I saw this kid come on there and I thought, dang, he looks really familiar. And then it dawned on me it was David Cassidy before he grew his hair long. And it never occurred to you, because you know him as the singer of the Partridge Family, but you never think of him doing other things, right?
That's true.
And then all of a sudden you see him and you're like, hey, I even took a picture of a screen grab for my friends, and I'm like, you know who this is? Nobody knew. But it's just a connection to David. I'm just saying, it's funny because you always picture them doing one thing, and then when they do something else, you're shocked because you don't really, you got this mindset.
I didn't realize back then that he was such a pretty girl, and that's why I was madly in love with him. I figured that out. And that's kind of what this book is talking about, is really just fate and destiny, and kind of when you get a gut feeling about something, and then eventually that gut feeling comes to fruition. And like early in my life, I didn't identify it the way I do now. I've really am tapped into my spirituality and into intuition and all of that. I wish I could have been a little bit of that in my youth, but I wasn't. So I can read this very short, tiny page, which will give you a synopsis of the book, and it will also lead up to what we're probably going to talk about, which is fate and destiny and how it affects your race. Okay, so this reading, I'm going to give you a little Brooklyn accent.
Figure it out. Oh, wrong button. I always do this lately. Look, check this out. There you go. See?
Hey, thank you.
Go for it.
All right, I'll give you a little Brooklyn accent, but I'm rusty. I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1961, the firstborn and only female offspring of my Italian-American parents. In this rigid society, ingrained with generations of tradition, young girls were taught to cook the Sunday gravy as soon as they could stand on a chair at the kitchen stove next to their mothers and grandmothers, all in preparation for marrying the man of their dreams, a hairy Italian-American boy by the name of Dominic or Vinny. I knew there was more to my future than the cookie cutter lifestyle my parents stamped out for me. And as I pushed aside my fear of damnation for my unconventional thoughts, in 1980, I married my one and only boyfriend, and we spent the next 15 years growing our family of 4 young children. As I slowed for my usual stop sign one day, a block from my Staten Island home, I felt a familiar nudging in my gut, an elusive indicator that drove my life choices. I found myself sitting in my car, unable to move, while my mind began counting the many blessings in the last 34 years of my life. In contrast to my soothing list of gratitude was an overwhelming sense of foreboding that overtook me on that corner. As surely as I was breathing was the certainty that everything was about to change, and change in a big way. And unbeknownst to me, it was. By an act of fate, via misdirected email, I would soon meet Mickey Neal, a woman who lived 3,000 miles away in Alameda, California. And we'd soon admit our love for each other. Amidst the warning bells of our new friendship took on a life of its own. With my ears ringing and my head spinning, I did nothing to stop it and everything to encourage it. Fate began to rapidly steer the course of our lives. Would we find a light at the end of this tunnel of despair? Which it was back then.
Right. That was my
Angsty,
thought. Was, when this started to happen. Well, let's go to the beginning. You got the email from her, and
there was. Let me put in a little bit of context. There was no internet then. We were on DOS, and you probably weren't even born then.
Yes, I was. I had the first radio. I had the first Tandy computer. Okay.
Okay.
That's where I was. I was typing in all my stuff to get to get the little buffalo guy to jump up and down. That's how bad it was.
There you go. So we were. I had sent an email to a friend of mine, and that's all you could do then was send email, and I had left the number 1 off. His email was, let's just say, cat@abc.com. And Mickey's email was cat1@abc.com. And I left the 1 off, and the email didn't go to my friend. It went to her. I switched up the emails. It went to her. And I just got an email back saying, hey, I think you meant this for your friend because I keep getting all his email. People are leaving off the 1. And I'm from Brooklyn. I'm like, what? Like no one is that nice in my neighborhood where I grew up, So I was shocked that someone would be that kind to me. And that just, began a very fast and furious friendship. We were both married for almost 20 years to our husbands. I had a bunch of kids. She didn't. I lived in New York. She lived in Alameda, California, San Francisco Bay Area. And that's the story, how that all evolved. From a gut feeling, which has ruled my life from as far back as I could remember it.
When did you guys, because obviously you were both married, had your families, when did you realize that you were building up feelings for each other?
I would say within 3 months, about 3 months.
Wow.
We couldn't identify him, but we knew there was something going on.
And so this progressed. I mean, what was going on with your married life? I mean, were you still the happy little housewife? Or I hate to say it that way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yes, I was. And as it turned out, my husband at the time, and myself and Mickey and her husband at the time, we kind of became friends together because we were interested in each other's lives. They were polar opposite, and we just all became friends. So we were both still very actively involved in our marriage and not really quite sure what was going on between us, but we knew that it was not. I didn't really realize what was going on. She realized before me. And one day on a Sunday when I was frying meatballs, while the kids and my husband were out playing in the backyard, she blurted out, "I love you." And, and I thought, oh, we're best friends. You love me. And she, that's not what she meant. And that is really where it all spiraled out of control.
So, okay, when you say out of control, what does that mean, out of control?
I would say we were fairly obsessed with each other. We, spent all our time on the phone. Back then, writing emails was a big thing. To get an email to actually go was a big thing. So it was very much a snail mail environment where you wrote cards and letters and things like that. We just started to share the events in our life and the people in our life. I made a video for her and she made a video for me, and that we got to meet each other's people or tribes, so to speak. And it was just really a friendship that I had not had. I had had one other friendship that went that deep, but it had been a really many decades since I've had somebody affect me that way.
Now, let's do this for the young folks out there. When Sally refers to snail's pace and slow email, we're talking. There's no, there is no wireless stuff going on. We're on dial-up here, guys. You have no clue how slow and miserable dial-up was, and the processors on these old computers were horrible, just horribly slow. My first computer probably had 18 megabytes on my Tandy, and that's all I have of memory available on my Tandy. That's how bad it was. We had to type in if we wanted any kind of software to run. unless you were very lucky, you had to type in stuff. Like they would, when you bought the computer, they would send you books on different little things you can make the computer do. But you spent hours typing it in. You mess up one line, it's game over. That's how it was. And God forbid somebody was on the phone or in the middle of something when you're trying to get an email out, somebody picks up the phone. So
it's true. It's true.
It
Dial-up was your best friend, but only when it made that. Then you're like, yes, I'm connected. But if it didn't do that, you were screwed.
It's kind of like
you're not going to get on.
Like when you guys send a fax, that's what it's like. It's that noise. It's the same noise with a fax, only you're dialed up to be online. America Online had the corner on all this, man. It was craziness. So I'm really interested in this because I mean, like with the way, like you say, the way communication was. Then you're talking about sending a video too. I mean, that's insane.
Well, you know, I remember we were trying to send pictures to each other, and I sent mine the old-fashioned way in the mail, and she went to Kinko's and paid, I think, something like $45 to have one picture scanned onto a floppy disk. And then when she got home, they did it in a different format, and it didn't work. And it took something like 2 weeks to get this thing. And then after all that, you couldn't attach it. It was too big. You timed out. And all you looked at was a blue screen with a bunch of dots. I mean, it was.
Yes.
But my world became this little square box that had her name in it, and my name would come up on her screen. And so we always kept our computers on as we were going about our busy lives. You know, oh, I see. Even the kids would say, "Mickey's on," because they wanted to talk to her. So everything was very archaic in those days.
Absolutely. And I remember the old Macintoshes too, when they first came out. All they did was crash, but that face with that little box with the smile would come up.
That's right.
And so it would crash and come up, and all you see is this big smile, and you think, oh, you miserable little, you know.
Yeah.
So you're building this. How many years did this go on via email, like the back and forth with the miserable internet?
It didn't go on very long. We met in August of 1995, and by September of 1996, I had moved to California from New York with my husband, our children, our dog, a turtle, and my mother-in-law. And we drove cross country with the U-Haul and a caravan behind us. And then, you know, we went about living our lives as friends. We were friends. We hung out together. And, you know, it just became, we just fell in love. I mean, that was the bottom line. We fell in love with each other. For me, it was a defining moment to my sexuality. It made a lot of sense. I was completely repressed. I had no clue why girls hit on me in school all the years I went to school. I'm so upset about that. But anyway, you know, in seriousness, it was a defining moment in my life to realize that I was a lesbian and had been one my entire life. So that was big. And I had a husband and 4 kids, Italian Catholic family. So, and, you know, I left and moved 3,000 miles away. And that was almost impossible to do. In the environment that I grew up in, you know, people didn't do that.
Did your husband realize what was going on, or did you have to like literally go to him to come out and say, hey, you know what, Mickey and I, we've been communicating and there's something going on here, and you know?
You know, I think both husbands knew that there was very deep love between me and Mickey, and they weren't quite sure if it was normal. I think that's kind of how it all manifested.
Okay.
So I don't think either one of them expected for either one of us to say we wanted to end our marriage because we were in love with someone else.
Okay. And then you were talking earlier about your intuition kicking in and the paranormal end of this. What was going on with you that way? You know, was it that you felt a special connection with her, and she, you know, sometimes the people, when they get close, even friends, you can start knowing what they're thinking, and this starts going on because there's some kind of connection that comes across I can't say airways, but you know what I mean, that comes across. It's kind of like a mother has with her kids. So did you have kind of that stuff going on too?
Well, I would say yes. You know, the day I met my husband, I was invited at the last minute to a wedding. I was 15 years old and he was 19. His cousin married my best friend. And I went to this wedding to the church, and I was invited to the reception as well. And I walked out of the church with my mom, and I turned to her and I said, something really big is going to happen today. I have this feeling, and it's like right here. And she's like, of course something big is going to happen. So-and-so and so-and-so got married. It's a wedding. And that was the night I met my ex-husband. So I get gut feelings when I know something big is going to happen. And I would say I've met a close circle of soulmates in my life, people that I have had in a moment's time. It's like, I've explained this to a friend of mine. It's like the universe will stop the world just for a split second, crack it open, the tiniest crevice, for this energy to come out, and for two people to connect, for them to be united in a deeper way, on a deeper level, not like in a way that you know this person is defining in your life and special for whatever reason. And every time I have had that encounter, it has been preceded by an incredible gut, almost a physical punch to the gut. And it realizes itself. It could be moments, it could be hours, or it could be years.
So that's your angel on your shoulder talking to you.
I think so, yeah.
That voice.
So meeting Mickey, we were both clear that, you know, we for sure had a deeper connection. And, you know, we were on the same wavelength a lot of the time. You know, if I thought about something, I would call her up and she would say something, and I'd say, I just thought about that. That's why I'm calling you. So there's that, the energy that goes between soulmates that keep you connected, that you sometimes think you're thinking something, but what you really are is hearing them thinking it. And it's coming to you at the same time it comes to them. And that still happens actually to this day a lot.
Do you think that Mickey possibly could have been involved with you in another lifetime?
I do. Yes, I do believe that. I believe you travel in like through your lives with a circle of soulmates, and maybe, you know, now she's my wife. Next time she might be my sister. The time after that, your child. You know, you know, that's my spiritual belief.
I believe that too. I believe that we travel in the same circle of people, and sometimes, like you say, sometimes they'll come in different roles, but they're there, and that's why you feel familiar, you know, with people that you meet. Like even in school, you'll find somebody that you feel familiar with, the ones that don't tease you. You know what I mean, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I do. I think similarly about traveling in circles. Now, coming from your background, because I know my brother was gay, and my family's Catholic. You know, we're Mexican.
Okay.
But Catholic. So I kind of, you know, I understand where you're coming from with your background and having to just face your mother down, you know, when all this started to go down. How did your mother take it all?
Well, my mother passed away many years ago when she was in her 40s. So she didn't live to see the embodiment of me evolve into what I am today. I like to go back to that because I do have a spiritual story about that. But briefly, my dad pretty much flipped out, and but he came around. But it took him a decade, because he would not come visit us in our home. It was okay if we visited him. We could stay in the same bedroom, but we weren't supposed to say we were married or together, and he wouldn't come to our house. And after he did, after 10 years, he never stopped coming to our house. He adores my wife, and the relationship between the three of us is beautiful. And that certainly wasn't the case with my ex-husband and my dad and myself. That's a different dynamic. But my mom passed away young, and I went to a psychic back in 1998, and I was dating another person at the time, and she was big on psychics, and she kept dumping me, and I kept trying to figure out why you keep dumping me and then want me back, and I just kept, it just kept happening over and over. So she would go, okay, today we're going to meditate. So we would meditate and see if that worked. But she had a friend who knew a psychic, and I called up the psychic, and I had a personal psychic reading with this person. And originally I wanted to speak with her about this relationship that I was trying to separate myself from. And the first thing she said to me, and there really was no internet then either, she had no idea who I was. And she said to me, I see a woman, she's standing in front of me, she's petite. She has on a white nightgown, and she's holding the hand of a little girl. And she said, did your mother pass? And I said, yes. And she said, well, that's your sister. And my mother had a miscarriage before me. And, back then they weren't going to tell you the sex of the baby. But then my mom said two things. One, she said, your mom said to tell you her feet don't hurt anymore. And my mother suffered from leg and feet cramps like I've never seen another person have. Now, how this person would ever know that, she would never know that. And the other thing she said is, your mom said she knows that who you are now, you're happy, and she's happy for you. Don't feel bad about that anymore. And then the reading went on to be other things, but it was indicative of, I think if you are spiritually aware and intuitive, and you are having engagement with another person who has that ability on a higher level than me, who can read your energy, that they will see things about you that they have no way of knowing other than to tap into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of the fear with parents, and I know I heard my father say this, because as my brother got older, a lot of it was that he would get involved with young men. And of course, the older he got, the less the young men wanted to hang around. You know what I mean? And that was my father's biggest fear. Is my father. In fact, my father reacted better than my mother did, and because he had been in the Coast Guard, so he had had that experience with gay men in the Coast Guard.
Right.
And so he understood. My mother at first was like your mother, like, hey, you know what? My dad said, well, you could totally ignore him. He's still your son, and blah 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 blah. So finally, my mom, came around to embracing it. But I think a lot of the fear, like my father had, was that it's a lot, unless you get with somebody like your wife, because I have a niece that's married, that's been happily married for years now. Unless you find someone like your wife, it can be a sad life, because like as you get older, the younger ones don't want to be with you, and
for sure.
And then the older ones already settled in their lives. So I think that's what saddened my dad mostly about it. But otherwise, he was all right with it.
It's different, and it's different for men. Women approach relationships differently than men. So it's harder for men to be committed, and it's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Not all men, but I think they're chemically challenged. I would say that. I'm glad I'm not a man. I don't know how you cope with that.
So literally, when you came out, what? I mean, you said your husband didn't take it well at all. But I mean, with men,
no, he took it great.
He
took it great. We had an amicable divorce.
Okay.
We had started to pull apart. Kind of. As you start to attach yourself to another person, you will kind of pull away from the person that you're most close to sometimes. And that's what had happened. So we had kind of grown apart, which was really odd, because we were very much like this. But when I told him, we decided we would tell the kids together, and we would only tell the older kids initially, because the younger ones were, younger. And the older ones were early teens. So I remember we had a family meeting, and he said, okay, kids, we're going down the basement and we're going to have a family meeting. And we sat down on the couch, and not even a second passed. And he said this: we're getting a divorce and your mom's a lesbian. just like that.
Wow.
And the kids looked at him and said, oh, okay, well, do we have to move now? No. Well, will you tell us and give us like a lot of notice? Yes. I mean, and that's all they were interested in at that moment in time, which I thought was an insane reaction. But I mean, our kids too were very gracious with my transition into a lifestyle was very different from what they were used to, in the sense of having to explain themselves in school and having to decide if and when they're going to tell anybody they have two moms. As far as what went on in the household, it was no different. It's two parents, a bunch of kids and jobs and bills and stress and therapists and all of that. It's the same. So.
Well, I think too, a lot of it was they had, I mean, like you say, they knew how close you were as friends anyway. So they were used to her by now. So, I mean, it really,
yes, very much so. Yes.
But, the transition was a lot easier instead of it being like if I got, well, if anybody goes out and has an affair, and suddenly there's a divorce and, well, you got to spend so much time with your, twice a month with your dad and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Perfect strangers because they already knew her.
That's right. Yeah.
So it made that transition a little easier,
That's true.
But I can see how in school, it would be something to have to go in and explain to other kids, hey, we're going to have parent-teacher night and both my moms are coming. What?
Yeah, we didn't get together right away. There was a little more than a year or so that we went our separate ways. But when we did, get married and start to raise our family together, we were at an open school night, and there was us, the two moms, and there was these two dads with another kid. And the teacher said, okay, moms fill out this form and dads fill out that form. And we looked at each other and we switched papers. I mean, it was like, okay, so what do we do? That's it. A lot of that has really changed since federal recognition of equality, equal rights. It made a tremendous difference.
That was my other question for you. Did you guys have a lot of problems in the beginning? Because I mean, back then it wasn't like it is now.
Well,
hard.
We were in California, which is a fairly liberal state, and we were in the San Francisco Bay Area, so that was even more of a plus. We lived in a town that was diverse, had a lot of diversity, ethnicities and backgrounds, religious and different types of houses of worship. So there was a lot of diversity where we lived. So we didn't see too much. And it was more of the kids being bullied in school by friends that were homophobic or against, gay relationships.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
Did your husband stay in California, or did he go back to New York?
He did. He remarried actually before I did. And had 20-year marriage. He passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, but he had a very happy marriage with his second wife.
And you had an incredible working career too. I mean, your background is incredible. The stuff you've done.
I've done some things, I always like to help people and like share, not so much my food. Not food. I don't share food that well because I'm a food addict, but I always want to share every other thing in my life. And so I just grew up with that mentality. And as I evolved into a career, I would help people for no money, for no fee, for just because I could, whether they needed a resource for this or that. Other consultants would charge. I didn't charge. And, goodwill goes a long way. And that methodology has really served me well because I feel like I'm 60 years old. I'm going to be 61 very soon. And it's like I've accumulated knowledge. Some of it is good. Some of it is lame. I've accumulated relationships and a lot of resources. And why should I hold on to these things? They're not doing me any good. So even in my career, I would go above and beyond that. So I was a grant writer for a number of years. I ran a consulting firm for 8 years. Then I branched off on my own, and I really focused on helping small business get money to train their employees. So in my career, it was about $18 million, trained about 800,000 employees. Some of those I directly trained, not much, but some in some leadership and communication classes and things of that nature, and business strategies. So I did all that. And then I got into music, and I got into event production, because when we were fighting for marriage equality, I started a business called Queer Stuff Enterprises. And we used to host monthly music, literary, and comedy showcases and give the money to charity. And the idea was, when you like walk into a play, everybody's like, look what she's wearing. But when you walk out of the play, you talk to each other, you've had this experience together, and you now bond. So that was this premise, if you could bring people together through entertainment. And it just flourished. I wound up working with some filmmakers and Showtime, and some of the Queer as Folk and the L Word, and producing literary cruises. And I've just had an enormously fortunate life to be able to do all those things. And along the way, I always try to bring people in and help people any way I can.
Do you think that even now, with all the openness, there's still a stigmata stuck to people that are gay?
I think, yes, I think homophobia is still out there in certain parts of our country. It's not changed at all. In other parts, it's, it's evolving. And in some parts, it's like, wow, we have a second home in Palm Springs. And I mean, 60% of the population is gay. And my wife always says, you have to come out to me as straight, otherwise I'm going to assume you're gay, because the whole town is gay. So there are parts of the country that are very gay friendly, and parts that are very dangerous. So.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, I see it every time. I mean, I was looking at, I'm not going to say what TV channel here, but they had run something on Facebook about Anderson Cooper. Was it Anderson Cooper or with the new baby? And the comments that were being said, I mean, it's just incredible. These people.
Andy Cohen. I think it was Andy Cohen.
Yeah, maybe. They have to be. These people have to be flat earthers. I swear to God. With the comments that they're coming up with.
So it kind of to me, I kind of feel like this is hell that we're living now. And there is a other universe, an alternate universe, more than one of them. I believe there's aliens around us right now, watching us, giving us a little test, saying, watch what these people do when we do this.
Right.
And it just feels like humanity is wrong. It's just that no one cares about the planet. People don't care we're in a pandemic. I mean, it's like, oh my God, what has to happen for people to love one another and get along?
It's just crazy. Let's clear something up. And I know that's one of the comments I kept seeing about that little baby being raised by two men. Where well, you can get it. I'm not going to go really into the deep comments, but how old are your kids now?
30s, all of them. 31 up to 37.
So they didn't grow up and end up like wild gay people or anything like that. They just grew up normal lives. They had two moms and they had a dad. They also had the dad, but I mean, living in the household of two moms, it didn't really make a difference, right? I mean, it's just.
Well, they got chores, they had allowance, they got punishments and making amends. They were not treated any differently by Mickey and me, and as they were by their father and me, and their father and their stepmother. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to clear up, because a lot of these people, they think it's going to be a different atmosphere for them, and they're going to grow up. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go into it, but yeah. And that's
I think it's changing, and it's changing for the better.
Yeah.
And I think we're evolving. We're living through some pretty amazing history. So I feel fortunate. I also live my other home is in Sedona, so that's also a spiritual mecca.
Absolutely. Oh, I love Sedona.
So, yeah. So
you seem very spiritual.
Not all the time. I curse a lot and lose things. I turn into my father a lot.
Me too. And I'm really good at doing an imitation of the New York cab driver. I'm really good at that one too sometimes. You know.
When he stays with us a couple of times a year, and if we do a project together, Mickey runs out of the room because we're both going, "Where's the hammer? Where's the screwdriver? What are we doing? We don't even know." Hey, I have a poem I'd like to read for you.
Go for it.
And it's called "I Am Alien," and I'm writing a poetry book, based on love's pain and pleasure.
Sure.
And this one was inspired by some witchery. So it just talks a little bit about life in an alternate universe, and it's called "I Am Alien."
Okay. Fair enough.
I am alien. Under skin, matter becomes me. Power coursing, heavenly body, constellations contour your silhouette. Pulsing in the shadows where dusk meets dark, dripping into the Milky Way. Parched, my tongue a gyroscope of chromatic spectrum, awaiting your pot of gold dust. Trapped on my earthly spot, Gemini orbits swirling above, Starlink lasso, roped. Universe crams, body slams, obstacles be damned, meteor showering my tears. Naked and scared, I wait for dusk, where my wings thrust, spinning galaxies on their pivot. Liftoff, I am alien. I come at the speed of light with you.
Wow. You're so talented. That's incredible. That is really great.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. I just find, the parts of your book that I've read, like I said, in the intro, and I loved it. In fact, I can't wait to get back to it. It's just, it's just like, I should have all this time in the world because I'm semi-retired, but you know what, people, you don't when you're retired. You don't have the time.
Well, it has the word memoir on it. So a lot of people see that and are like, that's boring. I don't want to read about that. But it really is just a love story, and it's a true love story. And I consider myself a nonfiction writer. So it has some intuitive stuff in there, some spirituality, and a lot of fate and destiny. But
how long have you and Mickey been together?
September 9th, we'll be married 22 years.
Wow. That's incredible.
And when our friends read the book, some of them called us up and said, we're halfway through and we're worried you're not going to get together. And we're like, but we are together.
22 years is a long time. I mean, a lot of couples don't make it that far.
It took me a very long time to write this book. I wrote the book in 2018.
Was it just as much, and married couples, it's give and take, you have to bend with each other and work with each other. Was it just as much a give and take with you and Mickey as it was with your husband?
It definitely is. In fact, back in the early 2000s, we were featured in Time magazine. We just happened to get picked. We were doing a lot of marriage equality work then, and we were in the sex and love issue, and what we were interviewed about, because we were in counseling when we were raising our children, we would go and not go and go and go as we needed, and we were asked the question are the problems in relationships any different, or the benefits in relationships any different for same-sex couples than for straight couples? And the answer is no. The biggest problem is communication, or thinking what the other person expects in you, and you think one thing and they think something else, and that is across the board. So relationship wise, I will say this: it's the most respectful relationship I've ever been in my life. I've never had anyone treat me as number one priority before themselves, as frequently as Mickey does that. So that is still something that I'm not quite used to. It's still a head turner.
That's fantastic. But you think a little bit of it is too that because Mickey is a woman, that the the stuff that goes through your head as a woman, the stuff that goes through her head as a woman, you guys know about it already, technically. So you understand each other more, like that time of the month. For instance, where there's going to be high emotions during that time, so you're going to be more, I'm not nicer to each other, or you're going to, just tap lightly during that time.
Definitely the physical similarities are, you're getting hot flashes. The other person knows what that's like, or you get cranky because of that and they don't, hold it against you. But yeah, definitely, there's definitely an advantage on the physical aspect. I would say on the emotional side, I wouldn't say there was a benefit dating a woman over being in a relationship with a woman over a man.
Okay. Okay.
I think women are harder. Men, you could kind of steer them here and there and everywhere if they want to be, and women, forget that shit. Not going to happen.
Because I had read an article somewhere a few years ago when I was on the editor's desk at a newspaper, where they had these relationship hotlines that people could call in and ask for relationship help. And some people were put off because some of the people they were calling were gay couples, were people that were involved in gay relationships. But when they interviewed the people, that were on that were giving the advice, a lot of them said, "Well, you've got a regular heterosexual relationship. It's harder to be gay and keep a relationship going." And so
it definitely comes with those challenges for sure.
Yeah. So the gist of the article was that sometimes they were better off talking with a gay, with a gay couple as opposed to a straight couple, because they have to work harder at the relationship.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. It's I think it's hard to choose a partner because there's so much you don't know about them. And the fact that any two people could live together harmoniously for most of the time is a miracle. You come from different places, different backgrounds, different family dynamics. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why even straight couples, it's a miracle. Like my parents, 65 years together.
Wow, that's awesome.
And they were both on their second and third marriages. So I mean,
Oh wow.
It's just awesome. Apparently the first two or three didn't work, but
right.
Any couple I think that gets beyond 20 years it's incredible.
Some of our kids will ask us for relationship advice, and we're like, oh my God, by the time you're 60, none of this matters. You don't care about all of these little things. It just rolls off you and you just move on. But, when your 33-year-old is asking you for that kind of advice, it's like, as soon as you can get to the place where you can let these repetitive arguments and areas that you don't see eye to eye and just keep wanting the other person to change or meet in the middle, it's just like, let it go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't amount to anything in the scheme of your life and relationship. And that's why I love being 60. I hope I come back 60 every single time. I mean, it's a great decade. You really know yourself and what you want and don't want.
Well, I think that's the case. And I think, when we're younger, we get frustrated because we're on that track to do this and do this and do this and do this. And then if we get a partner that's on an opposite track, it's just a big clash thing. But then when you reach a certain age, you realize, I don't care if I do that. It'd be nice if I could, but I'm fine with not doing it. And I think that's where things mellow out when you hit a certain age.
I mean, it could be anything to like one of us is messy and the other one likes to clean up. I mean, that works out great, right? Just don't keep leaving the mess because I like to clean up. And if you don't, then I'm going to be bored. That's a perfect relationship right there.
That's it. How long did it take you to write your book?
I went to China in 2011 with Olivia Cruises for women. And I met one of my dearest friends, Susan. And after that trip, we went up on the same trip together, and there were five couples of us that all are still friends and go on trips together when we can. But Susan and I hit it off. And she asked me this question. She said, did you always know you were a lesbian? And I said, oh God, no. And she said, well, how old are you? I said, 34. And she goes, what happened? And that's how it started. I started an email that I entitled in the subject line, The Sunday Gravy. And I went all the way back to my childhood and explained to her kind of the culture that I was coming from and how you're raised as a small girl. The only goal in mind is get married, make babies, get married, make babies. And be the matriarch of the family eventually. Mm-hmm. So it was a very different scenario. And every one of the chapters in this book that is titled, and every one of those represent an email that I sent to my friend Susan that later became the chapters of the book. Of course, it went through a very big edit and rewrite and blah, 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 blah. But without Susan, and she's in the dedication in the front of the book, this book would have never happened. It took 23 years to write it.
Wow.
And people would hear our story about this email and how we met and all this other stuff. And they go, you should write a book. And it's like, yeah, I was writing short stories and I was like a travel journalist and doing stuff like that. I didn't want to, like the thought of writing a novel, I couldn't even wrap my mind around it. So I still believe I'm a short story writer. Even with poetry, it's even shorter. You can tell a story with a poem, 1 page, boom. And you could, knock somebody's socks off. So start your book, Charlotte. Start your book.
My book. Yes, I have to
one story. Each chapter is a short story, and then it becomes a book.
You know what I thought of doing, because I do have a blog that I write, for the activities of my team and some of the stuff we do, is taking some of those and making those into chapters and just expanding on them. It'd be a lot easier.
That's right.
To find ways to do that. Now, let's get to your other books too. You write other stuff. It's not just this book.
Yes, I've written some short stories that went into anthologies with various publishers. Those stories are probably 5,000 to 7,000 words. I've edited 3 series of anthologies for Sapphire Books. One is about long distance romance. Wonder where that one came from. And there's another one that's all paranormal called Fandom to Fantasy. There's 3 volumes of really cool fandom fantasy stories. And the editor of my current book is an incredible paranormal author. I don't want to give her name out without her permission, but I'm going to connect you with her because she just won the I think it was 2021 or 2020 Imadjinn Awards, Book of the Year, Paranormal Book of the Year.
That would be great. Thank you.
I'll hook you up with her.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. You're so talented. And we kind of have, since I didn't realize that you had written travel stories. So yeah, we come from a similar background. So I think you being able to raise kids and live your life and write all this stuff is incredible. Anybody that can do that.
I've been fortunate to travel to a lot of amazing places that I've never thought I would ever see. The Great Wall of China.
Wow.
Mickey and I lived in Costa Rica for 8 years. It was unbelievable. The only thing that brought us back was grandchildren. But it was an unbelievable experience, wonderful country. Go there if you ever think about it. Don't think about it. Go.
Oh, I definitely want to travel.
So I was writing for a travel magazine when I was living in Costa Rica. I was traveling all over Central and South America. So it was a good opportunity to do that. It was a lot of fun.
So what's life for you like now?
Well, I'm technically retired. I help take care of my dad, not physically yet, but probably one day. I do all of his paperwork and bills and all of that stuff. And Mickey and I own some rental properties. I manage that. And I play a lot of music. I'm learning to sing for the first time in my life. And I started in 2019. That's been a journey. And I like to draw and do things like that. But I adore hiking in Sedona, and I adore living in this house that I live in. And one day you can have me back, and we could talk about all the spirits I live with and the fairies.
Absolutely.
Black hat guy. And by the way,
the black hat guy too.
The black hat guy. I saw the black hat guy the other day. I was going to tell my friend this in an email today, but I forgot. I was driving down Bell Rock Boulevard, and I stopped for a golf cart because we live around the corner from this golf course. And I let this guy through, and I turn my head and I see another golf cart. Only it wasn't there. I just turned my head, and there it was. It was like a light green golf cart with that freakish guy with that hat. And he did that. This guy's been after me. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
If you ever want to have me back, we'll talk about fun.
I do want to have you back. That would be great. In fact, I have a friend that lived in Arizona for quite some time, and she told me she was doing her dishes, and she had a window, and she said a T-Rex walked by.
Oh, I believe her. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable place. If you're tuned in, if you're thinking about, paranormally speaking, and I'm not an expert by any means, but if you're thinking about something, it's a memory. If you're not consciously thinking about something and there is something there that you're hearing or seeing, there's something there that you're hearing or seeing.
That's awesome. I definitely want to have you back on. That would be fun.
That'd be awesome. I appreciate you having me on today. And,
you're a fun person.
Promoting my book. That's really awesome.
You have good energy. You're a fun person.
Well, thank you. So are you.
But I just did, and it's fun to have guests on like you.
I appreciate it.
I do appreciate you. Shows that, all we talk about is death here. No, I'm kidding. You guys, I don't get me wrong, guys. I love talking about the paranormal, but sometimes, boy, it can get to you after a while. Life after death and all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fascinating because everybody has a different take on it, and that's what makes it interesting. Is like a friend of mine told me, who's really popular ghost hunter here in California, there's no experts in the field, and if somebody says they're an expert, they're an idiot. Because there's just no way to be an expert. So it's interesting to hear different people's takes because everybody has a different take.
Sure.
On this stuff.
And
nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Near Sedona, there's a town that was built up on a hill so that, back in the day, they could see if anybody was going to come and get them. And the town is called Jerome. It's an amazing place.
Yes.
Have you been there?
I have not, but I've heard all the stories.
Bucket list that. They got the Jerome Hotel that is, still has active ghosts in there. Their, what's their burgers are called haunted burgers.
Oh, cool.
It's a great place if you're a person who appreciates paranormal. You want to go to Jerome, Arizona.
I did go when I did visit Arizona. We only had a day to cruise through Arizona. But my friend had bought tickets to spring training. I'm a big baseball fan, so she had bought tickets to a week of spring training. So that's what we did was that, and the zoo in Phoenix. But we did get a chance to go to oh my God, the OK Corral and all that.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And she was seeing stuff left and right because she's psychic, and she kept going, God, that guy's coming towards me. He's got one of those bowler hats on. He's coming towards me. And I said, what guy? And what was funny because she had names. And so when I got back to the motel, I started looking stuff up, and they were all in Boot Hill Cemetery. And I was like,
see?
Wow.
And if you come back to Sedona and you haven't gone to the cemetery, it's a fantastic day trip. I mean, you can drive through it. It has the most gorgeous views in Sedona. And the stones are very much like New Orleans. The graves are very ceremonial. Some of them have fences and pictures. And
I love that. I used to go around even up here, and even in the area I live, go to the old cemeteries and just take pictures of the different tombstones.
Yeah.
Because it's like lumberjack ones where they have the piece of wood on there with the saw.
That's right.
To show what type of person's in there.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed this hour immensely talking to you.
Well, thank you, Charlotte.
I would love to have you on again.
I'd love to be back. It's really fun talking to you. I appreciate your doing this show. I'll definitely pass the word about folks who might want to donate to the cause.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you.
I'll do that myself after the show. Yeah.
Keep us
and I want to, thank you so much for having me on. It was really great to talk to you.
How can people get a hold of you?
They can find me on my website, SallyanneMonti.com.
Okay. Terrific. Well, again, I want to thank you for coming on. This was great. And I didn't know what, until I started talking to you, I was kind of leaning questions this way, leaning questions that way, but see, everything just started flowing and away we went, so it was cool.
Yeah, it was great. I appreciate it.
And I really appreciate you coming on and taking your time out. Right. So again, I'll email you later on tonight. We'll set up. I'm booking for March and April right now. So we'll see
awesome.
If we get you set up. Okay.
All right, cool. And I can connect you with some really cool paranormal people I know.
Sounds great. Okay.
I have a few in mind. All right.
Thank you so much and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. Peace out.
Peace out. Bye-bye. All right. That was fun. I love getting guests like this. That was a blast. And we're definitely going to have her back on to talk about the ghosties around where she lives and stuff, because Sedona is a very, very mystic place. Again, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies, because we're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. And subscribe to our YouTube page. Sometimes it's hard to find our YouTube page, so what you might want to do is go to our website at CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com and click on the video that's on the front of the page, and you can get to our YouTube videos from there, and then you can subscribe, because we really want you guys to see these shows. I mean, we got great guests like Sally and others that come on this show on a regular basis, and I think you'll like what you see. Okay. Again, the whole donate thing is, help us bring more exciting and informative guests to the show. Donate to paypal.me at California Haunts, or Venmo and just type in California Haunts. Again, all this comes out of my pocket. So if something breaks, I got to replace it. The computer goes down, the cost of computers. But again, I want to thank our guest, Sally, for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. And without further ado, our guest tomorrow, we're going to shift gears. It's going to be Health Day here at California Haunts. Rena Greenberg is going to be on with us. And she had a heart attack at the age of 26. 26, she had a heart attack. And she took a hard look at herself, because she, the doctors, of course, came out like doctors do with a big pile of medications and stuff to tell her, to do that. She ended up with a pacemaker. But she actually found a healthy and nutritional way to make her situation even better. And for the last 30 years, she has shared that with the public. And she's been very successful at it, weight loss programs, things like that. So she's going to be with us tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, usual time. And I hope you join me, because it's going to be an interesting show. I'm going to go ahead and share Sally's information for you, her website, so you know how to get a hold of her, where to get her books, and all that good stuff. But again, I want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I'm trying to remember if I covered everything. Yeah, CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com. Yeah, okay. Check. Got a little checklist up here. But thank you guys for coming tonight, and I really appreciate it. So here's Sally's information. And the website is Sallyanne Monti, Sally with a ANNEMONTI.com. And the book is Light at the End of the Tunnel. And she also has other books. So it's not only that, she has, fantasy, like she says, fantasy books and other types of writing that she does. So you can find those as well. And they are available at her website and at Amazon.com. Again, I want to thank you guys for coming, and I'm definitely going to try and get Sally back on the show, maybe in March or April. Maybe March. We'll see if we can do it March. But thank you, everybody, for coming, and please keep supporting us. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to be getting the Patreon really powered up here, and a couple other projects going on. So follow us, keep up the good work, and supporting us. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.